There's an unspoken truth that few people talk about. The longer we live, the more we tend to accumulate. Not just things, but feelings, memories, and unresolved pieces of the past we've never quite let go of. And then one day, the folding chair no one uses still sits in the corner. A coat once worn by a loved one who's no longer here still hangs quietly in the closet. The guest room meant for grandchildren slowly turns into a storage space for memories. Each time we walk through the narrow paths of our own home, something feels heavy, though we can't quite say why. If you've ever felt that way, then this video is meant for you. Welcome to Senior Rise, where every video is not just about organizing your space, but about opening the door to a new chapter in life, one that's lighter, freer, and more meaningful. Today, you'll discover 5 decluttering secrets that professional organizers almost never share with older adults. These psychological techniques won't just help you tidy your home, they'll help you release mental burdens, let go of the past with peace, and make space for a more vibrant future. Watch until the end, because the most powerful insight is in secret number 5, a simple shift that can change your relationship with clutter without forcing you to throw anything away. And if something in this video touches your heart, don't hesitate to leave a comment below. Your story might just be the one that inspires someone else to begin again. Secret number 1, the future self method. According to a survey by HomeAdvisor, the average cost to hire a professional organizer in the U.S. ranges from $125 to $150 per hour. A full home decluttering project for a senior can take anywhere from 20 to 40 hours, which means you could spend $3,000 to $6,000. And often that only addresses the surface, not the deeper psychological roots of why we hold on to so much. And yet, after all that money, many people still feel their home is full and their mind is even fuller. Wait, Kai, because while they're helped to rearrange their belongings, no one asks them the most important question: how do you truly want to live in the years ahead? Something curious happens as we enter our 60s and 70s. We begin to live more in our memories, not necessarily by choice, but because everything around us, every object, every photograph, every old tablecloth, quietly whispers stories from the past. A woman named Eleanor, age 68, once stood in her living room and said through tears, "I don't know why I feel so tired every time I open the closet. I just want to breathe easier, but my belongings cling to me like the past won't let me go." Eleanor had once been an art teacher. Her home office was overflowing with old lesson plans, faded student artwork, dried out paintbrushes, and small gifts from parents, kept for decades. Everything in the room was something she just couldn't throw away. Then during a quiet conversation, someone asked her a simple question: how do you want to live in the next 10 years? That question made her pause. It wasn't about whether to keep or toss anymore. It wasn't a battle between emotion and logic. It was an invitation to imagine the person she was becoming. You see, many people keep everything because it once meant something. But the question is, does it still serve the life you're living today? Or is it just an anchor that holds you back in yesterday? For Eleanor, the answer came into focus. She envisioned a calm space where she could practice yoga each morning, a simple wooden desk by the window to paint freely, and a cozy nook for tea and books. No need for the old teaching materials, no more yellowed stacks of paper, just the things that supported who she was becoming, not who she had been. And once she began asking herself, does this item serve my future life? Everything became easier. No more guilt over letting go of a gift from decades ago. No more pain when parting with a loved one's belongings. Just a gentle, thoughtful process of choosing, not from fear or duty, but from clarity. Professional organizers often skip this step. They focus on organizing, not reimagining how you want to live. They suggest more storage bins, more shelving units, more color-coded labels. But in the end, the house begins to resemble a tidy warehouse, not a home that breathes. For Eleanor, she didn't need more containers. She needed less, But better, have you ever asked yourself this question? Who am I keeping this for? The person I used to be or the person I'm becoming? If that question makes you pause, that's a good thing. Because change often begins with quiet honesty. In just 2 weeks, Eleanor cleared out 60% of her living space. No pressure, no rush, just a small handwritten note she kept nearby. I want to live in a home that feels as light as breath. And she let that vision lead the way. Secret number 2, the legacy timeline technique. There's a quiet belief that many older adults carry deep within. I'm keeping these things for my children, my grandchildren. Someday they'll want them. From porcelain tea sets tucked carefully away in cupboards, to faded handwritten letters, to a wedding dress once worn with hope and joy. Each item is preserved, wrapped in care, seen as part of an emotional inheritance to pass down. But perhaps the most heartbreaking realization comes when we discover our children and grandchildren don't need as much as we thought. A report published by the New York Times revealed that nearly 65% of adult children don't want to keep most of their parents' belongings. They live more simply, more practically, and are far less physically attached to the past. And yet, so many continue to live surrounded by a museum of memory, protecting it as if it were the only legacy they have left to offer. The story of Mr. Walter, age 74, living alone in the suburbs of Oregon, is a poignant example. After losing his wife, he remained in the house that once held 5 people. The living room walls still displayed his daughter's elementary school artwork. In the basement, hundreds of carefully labeled boxes sat quietly. Family photos 1990, letters from my wife, my son's childhood toys. Each box held the hope that one day his children would open them and feel the same wave of emotion he did. But one Thanksgiving, his son, now in his 40s and living in another state, gently said, "Dad, we really can't keep all of this. I know how carefully you've saved to it, but we just live differently now." Walter sat in silence for a long time. Then that spring, he began what he called a journey of intentional transfer. Instead of keeping everything, he divided his belongings into 3 thoughtful categories. Items to use now. His wife's beloved tea set was brought back into daily use, a way of keeping her close, woven into the rhythm of each afternoon. Items to digitize. He scanned letters, photographed drawings, and created an online album to share with his family. His children could keep everything without taking up physical space or carrying the emotional burden. Items to pass down directly. One evening, he invited his children for dinner. He laid out the keepsakes and simply asked, "What would you like to keep? What matters most to you?" His daughter took his old watch. His son chose a black and white photo of the whole family at the park. Everything else, he donated or let go with quiet reverence. And the miracle, he didn't feel loss. On the contrary, he felt something he hadn't felt in years, a sense of agency, of living intentionally, no longer just the silent keeper of a fading archive. Have you ever asked yourself, who am I really keeping all of this for? And do they even want it? That question might sting at first, but it's also the door that leads to lightness, to freedom, because true legacy isn't in the objects we leave behind. It's in the memories we share while we're still here to witness the look in their eyes. Walter's journey of decluttering memory wasn't about erasing anything. It was about choosing, passing on, and letting go like the final storyteller of his generation, sharing the flame before it fades. Secret number 3, the emotional anchoring system. There are certain items that aren't on any list of essentials, have no practical use anymore, and yet we simply can't let them go. An old shirt, a pair of worn shoes, birthday cards from someone who's passed. Just one touch, and suddenly their face comes back. Their voice, their presence, that fleeting moment floods the heart with emotion and longing. People call it clutter. But for older adults, clutter is often layers of memory that can't be touched by hands, only felt by the heart. What most professional organizers focus on is the physical, sorting, boxing, rearranging. But rarely do they go deeper. to the quiet emotional anchors that hold us back from moving forward. The story of Teresa, a 76-year-old retired nurse, illustrates this clearly. After her husband passed away from cancer, she spent 3 years cleaning his room without ever discarding a single thing. It became a space no one entered. The lights stayed on each night. His clothes were still washed regularly. Time, it seemed, had frozen, preserved at the last moment they were still together. One day her daughter, a therapist, gently asked, "Mom, are you afraid that if you let go of his things, you'll lose your memories of him too?" Teresa nodded, and she's not alone. Many seniors know they should declutter, but can't because of a deeper fear, the fear of losing a loved one all over again, this time through letting go of what reminds us of them. So, how do you move forward? Teresa began by identifying the emotions behind each group of items. It wasn't the shirt that mattered, but the memory of walking through the snow and her husband placing that coat on her shoulders. Not the pen, but the image of him writing medication notes for patients with quiet care. She chose a few meaningful items, like his favorite pen and winter hat, and had them framed, along with a black and white photo of them as a young couple. That room, once locked away in grief, became a space of remembrance, peaceful, bright, and warm. The retos? She wrote down the stories in a journal, photographed key items in meaningful arrangements, and shared a few keepsakes with her grandchildren. Not to store in silence, but to pass on the memory. If you're holding on to something that tightens your chest each time you look at it, try asking yourself, what am I truly holding on to here? The item or the emotion? And if it's the emotion, find a new way to hold it. You don't have to keep the physical form to keep the feeling alive. Because sometimes letting go does not mean forgetting. It means allowing that memory to breathe again, gently, without the weight of dust or guilt. After that journey, Teresa began inviting friends into the once forbidden living room. There she would share stories about her husband, not through objects, but through laughter and warmth. And she would often say, "For the first time in years, I feel closer to him, not through what I kept, but through the memories I chose to carry forward." If any part of this touches something in your heart, look around the room you're sitting in now and ask yourself, am I anchoring myself too tightly to the past? Be gentle, but also firm, because emotions, when given the right place to live, can become light, not chains. Secret number 4, the Threshold Mastery Protocol. There's a truth that rarely gets spoken aloud. Our living spaces aren't just overwhelmed by the past, they're also weighed down by the things we continue to bring in, day after day. It's true. Some people manage to declutter, and yet within a year, their home feels just as full as before. The problem isn't laziness or lack of commitment. It's that they've never learned how to become the gatekeeper of what enters their space. According to statistics from the National Association of Productivity and Organizing Professionals, 78% of people who declutter will begin accumulating again within 12 to 18 months, unless they change their relationship with ownership. In other words, it doesn't matter how many bins you buy, how many shelves you install, or even how much help you hire. If you don't control what comes into your home, the cycle will quietly repeat itself. Take the story of Harold, a 70-year-old man living in Michigan. After retiring, Harold decided to fully declutter his garage. Over the course of 3 months, he sold off tools, gave away old equipment, and even hired someone to repaint the floors. The space felt fresh, open, like a new beginning. But 14 months later, it was full again. Why? Because friends, neighbors, and family knew he had time and space. They dropped things off for him to hold on to, gifted him unused items, or asked to store things temporarily in his basement. And Harold, being polite and thinking, well, I have the room, simply said yes. No one had ever taught him how to say no, until one day he tripped over a newly delivered box and nearly fell, and that old feeling of losing control returned. That was the turning point. He created something he called his personal threshold. Instead of asking, do I need this? He began asking, If I bring this in, what am I saying no to? Does this truly support my current life, or am I just being agreeable? He designated a small thinking corner by the front door. Every new item, before entering the home, would sit there for 48 hours. If after 2 days it still felt necessary, it stayed. If not, it was returned, donated, or declined altogether. And something remarkable happened. Harold didn't just accumulate less, he started shopping differently. No more purchases made out of boredom. No more impulse buys during sales. No more taking on other people's clutter or guilt. Now Harold lives in a home where every item has been vetted with intention, like a mindful gatekeeper standing watch over the life he's chosen to lead. Have you ever looked around your home and asked yourself, why is this here? Do I truly need it? Or was I just avoiding the discomfort of saying no? When you begin mastering your threshold, you're not just protecting your home, you're protecting your freedom, your time, your energy. Because sometimes living simply doesn't begin with throwing things out. It begins with stopping more from coming in. Secret number 5, the delayed decision box. Not everyone is ready to make a decision right away, especially when the item in question holds a memory, a loved one, or a moment from a life chapter that may never return. There are things we no longer use, but we're not quite ready to let go. We don't have a strong reason to keep them either, but every time we consider giving them away, something tightens in the chest. A quiet ache. That's when we need a pause, a neutral space, so we're not forced into a decision between keep or discard too quickly. A woman named Clara, 71 years old, once shared her experience with this. She had an old suitcase filled with handwritten letters, postcards, and diaries from her youth. No one in the family looked at them, and she rarely did either. Her daughter once suggested, "Mom, why don't you scan everything and keep it digitally instead?" But to Clara, the feeling of holding those time-worn papers with her slightly trembling hands, that had meaning nothing digital could replace. Then a close friend, a therapist, offered her a gentle idea. Create a delayed decision box. It was just a simple container placed in an out-of-the-way corner of her home, quiet, tidy, and unassuming, like a little transfer station for emotions. Any item that brought her hesitation went into that box along with a small note marking the date, and then she left it alone for 30 to 90 days. No pressure, no deadline, just time to listen to herself. And strangely enough, after a few weeks, she'd forget about many of those items. When she opened the box again, the emotional pull had faded. She smiled, released them gently, not with guilt, but with peace. Some items, after 60 days, still tugged at her heart, so she kept them, but this time with intention and clarity, not emotional weight. That box, it turned out, wasn't just a place to store belongings. It was a space to listen, a space to allow herself to slow down. If you've been holding on to items that you pick up and put down again and again, try creating a box like this for yourself. Don't think of it as temporary storage. Think of it as your reflection corner, a place where objects aren't judged and where you give yourself time to let emotions settle. Have you ever felt that way before, where even the smallest object can leave you so conflicted that all you can do is sigh? That doesn't mean you're weak. It means memories don't have on-off switches. And sometimes what you need isn't a quick decision, but permission to choose later with a lighter heart. The delayed decision box, simple as it may sound, is one of the most powerful tools for helping older adults gently shift from the past to the present, from holding on to truly moving forward. And when you do that, you're not just decluttering your physical space, you're clearing something far deeper inside your mind and soul. If you've made it this far, then perhaps there's a quiet voice inside you whispering, it's time to live lighter. It's time to let go. Not because you need to change, but because you deserve a new chapter. One that isn't weighed down by clutter, old memories, or other people's expectations. Together, we've walked through 5 powerful secrets, ones that professional organizers rarely share. Not out of ill intention, but because they're so effective and so simple that if you apply them, you may never need outside help again. We began by imagining your future, visualizing the person you want to become, and learning to keep only the things that support that version of you. We explored how to pass on legacy at the right time, in the right way, so memories can be shared, not hidden away. We touched the deep emotional anchors, those quiet fears of losing someone all over again if we dare to let go of what reminds us of them. And we learned how to transform those feelings into living memories, warm, gentle, and alive. Then we mastered the threshold, not just guarding the door to our home, but the gateway to our inner peace. So unconscious accumulation no longer steals our freedom. And finally, we arrived at the delayed decision box, a soft space where decisions can wait and where we allow ourselves to listen more closely, more truthfully, more kindly. You might be thinking, but I have too much stuff. I don't even know where to begin. That's okay. Don't start with the whole house. Start with a single question. Am I living in alignment with the person I want to be 10 years from now? If the answer is not yet, then just one small step. One is already the beginning. Maybe it's creating your first reflection box. Maybe it's writing down a sentence about the future life you want to live. Maybe it's sending a message to your children. Come by this weekend. I have a few things I'd love to ask you about. Transformation doesn't start with a revolution. It begins with gentle honesty with yourself. And if this video touched you in any way, please don't keep it to yourself. Share it with a friend, send it to someone you care about, or leave a comment below about an item you once struggled to release. Your story may be exactly what someone else needs to hear. And who knows, they may be waiting for a sign to begin their own journey of release. You're watching Senior Rise, where we grow not just older, but deeper, lighter, and more awake. If you found value here, don't forget to subscribe. There are many more stories waiting to be shared, because your home is not a storage unit. It's a sanctuary, a place where you can breathe, a place where you can truly be yourself. Let it reflect the person you are today, not just the past you've already lived. Wishing you a gentle journey as you clear not just your space, but your heart. Senior Rise, live light from within. See you in the next video.